if we dive right in, Kelvin, I want to
Okay.
hear a little bit about your life. Tell me a fun fact about your childhood.
Well, a fun fact about my childhood. I grew up in Oklahoma, but probably the really fun fact, and it was more my young adulthood than my after we'd just been married. My wife and I and my two sisters, my three sisters, were on Family Feud.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah,
Who was
yeah,
the
we were
host back then?
Richard Dawson.
Okay, it's been around for a little while. I know they've few
Yeah, he
hosts.
was. We This was in the early '80s, and my family tricked me into going down to the tryout. It could be an all-day thing, and so they told me to come down towards the end of the day, and we got in, and we were selected, and so then we were on. I think we were on three shows.
No kidding.
Yeah.
So the real question is, were there any prizes?
Oh yeah, yeah. And back then they weren't really huge, but I think we won like $20,000, which for
Oh,
young married couples, so that divided four ways, that was a big deal.
that can be a transforming, absolutely. That's very
Yeah,
fascinating. Well, so from your childhood, and I failed to mention that you are the president and CEO of BioUtah, a life sciences organization here in the state of Utah. Tell me a little bit
correct.
about, growing up, how you got to where you are now. Tell me the succinct version of Kelvin's life.
All right. Let me see if I can succinctly tell that story. So a native Oklahoma, grew up there, came out, went to Brigham Young University, never went back. Think Oklahoma is a great place to be from. And so married, stayed here in Utah. My family all ultimately moved out here as well. Um, After graduating from high school in Oklahoma, as I mentioned, went to BYU, graduated from BYU, and went into business with my father. And we actually acquired several companies. It was mainly in the food business, but one company was brought to our attention by some friends in Oklahoma, a little company called Dynatronics in Pittsburgh, Kansas,
Okay,
and and bought that company for $50,000, moved it out to Utah, and operated it in the back of the bakery. We
interesting.
owned the we owned the Dunford Bakery at the time. For those who are familiar with bakeries here in Utah, um, and it was just at the time, interestingly enough, and this maybe goes to one of your other questions about failures. At that particular point in time, FDA had only been regulating medical devices for a few years, and
Sure.
I did not know that you had to have approval to manufacture and sell medical devices. And we soon ran into FDA and learned our lessons the hard way, and um, took that company public in 1984. And I became the CEO in 92, and I ran the company from 92 to about 2018.
Wow.
In 2015, we brought in some private equity. We tripled the size of the company, and then I stepped down. Um, we were primarily in the physical therapy space,
Interesting.
uh, where we operated. During that period of time, I served for about a little over 12 years on the board of the Medical Device Manufacturers Association in Washington, D.C., after sending a fairly blistering letter to the head of AdvaMed at the time, opposing their proposal to implement user fees. And that letter somehow went viral, and the people at MDMA called me and said, "We want you on our board." And I said, "Okay." So we fought user fees and everything else that was negative for our industry in Washington, D.C. for decades. And MDMA is a very well respected trade association now on the national level. Um, I also had the opportunity to, I'm probably the only entrepreneur in the state of Utah who was involved in starting up a medical device company and starting up a city. My,
Oh,
uh, my, my fortune in that, in 2004, got involved with a group who started the city of Cottonwood Heights, a suburb of Salt Lake
no
City.
kidding. Yes.
and I became the first mayor of Cottonwood Heights. So it was not a full-time job, so I was doing that simultaneous with being CEO of my company, and serving and starting up a city was a phenomenal experience. Gave me a lot of good contacts, state legislature, state level, local level, um, and did that for 13 years. So in 2018, stepped down from being CEO of my company, stepped down from being mayor, didn't run for another fourth term, was looking for an opportunity, and the trade association here in Utah, BioUtah,
Yep.
was looking for a new director. And it really seemed like a job that was made for me because it combined political acumen with life science acumen, and I was able to combine the two of them, and took over the reins of BioUtah in October of 2018. And
Wow.
it's just been a blast. I mean, getting to work with all these fabulous companies here in Utah. Utah is one of the fastest growing life science communities in the United States. So it's just been a blast.
So, Kelvyn, with all of these leadership positions that you've held, what an interesting, rich background you have. Random question: have you found that there's a quote something around that it's lonely at the top, right? When you're finding yourself in positions of CEO or a mayor, have you found that that's been the case, that there's other challenges that you don't really know until you're in those leadership positions?
Yeah, that's very true. Until you're sitting in the chair making the decision, it can look easy. A good leader, however, will surround themselves with people who make their job easy. Always trying to find people smarter than you, who know things, who can inform your decisions, can vet your decisions. But in the end, the loneliness comes in. I think it was Truman that said the buck stops here.
Mm,
Ultimately, someone has to make the decision,
sure.
and whether that's in a mayoral setting or whether it's in a corporate setting, um, yeah, you have to be ready to make the decision. And I find that when you surround yourself with really good people and you really listen to those people and you don't think you've got the right answer all the time, then you get a much better outcome.
What a great nugget
And
to take away.
the decisions aren't that hard when you have good counsel from your executives or from your council members, and you engage people.
Sounds like a great philosophy of leadership, Kelvyn. I like that.
Well, and the way you do that is you learn to respect those that you work with. You don't treat them as subordinates. You treat them as equals, and you make sure that they feel that they have a safe environment in which to express themselves. If they feel like they're going to be criticized all the time, they won't do it. And so you have to create an environment. And I think a CEO, a leader's main job is leading the team. It's getting the team to work together well, not making sure that their own ideas are the ones being implemented.
Sure. So, what has been your driving force? It seems somebody that has been in some of these type of positions and had successes. What is that deep down why that keeps you going, Kelvyn? What excites you?
Um, I don't know that there's any CEO or top elected official or someone that doesn't have just a little bit of ego. I mean, you have to feel like you have something to contribute,
Sure.
and feel like you recognize where your skill sets are. And I believe my skill sets lend themselves to organization and driving initiatives and things of that nature, and really getting a team on board and creating an environment that is ripe for success. Now, it doesn't always work, but and trying to figure out what you enjoy doing. I don't enjoy as much sitting back and doing what someone else tells me to do. I prefer much better to pursue my own ideas and to try and implement those. And so I think what has driven me my whole life has been the opportunity to make things happen. And sometimes it's hard to make things happen if you're not driving the train.
Okay, I hear you. So you're definitely not somebody to get caught in, as they say, analysis paralysis. You like to make an executed
No,
decision and move forward.
yeah, yeah, you have to. I mean, proper analysis is always important, But you've got to make decisions. You've got to create the vision, get people, and then move it forward. But we be willing to modify that vision when additional information comes to light that says, "Hey, you're going the wrong direction."
Absolutely. So here in the state of Utah, you've mentioned that we're one of the fastest growing biotech areas in the country. What interesting things are happening here in biotech? I could even ask, what is exciting about the next decade of where we're going?
Well, the draw for Utah has basically been in play since the 2002 Olympics. Utah got discovered. It's very hard to find a place that has the kind of lifestyle that we have here, the outdoor amenities that we have here, the transportation systems, the education system. It's just, when people come here, they just are amazed. And
so that was a tipping point, maybe, the Olympics for Utah.
yeah, oh yeah, definitely was.
Interesting. I've never thought of that perspective.
Yeah, that was the tipping point. And now what's happened is, of course, we've got some great generic or organic efforts being made at our universities. For instance, University of Utah is the #1 tech transfer school in the country. Most people don't. BYU is #4. So there's a lot of entrepreneurialism coming out of these schools, a lot of new technologies and things of that nature. And then we are cranking out high-level expertise. We've got lots of talent here, engineering talent, et cetera, and it's affordable. So, the growth here is not surprising at all, given the entrepreneurial spirit that exists here, the technology that's being delivered here, and the attraction of the state as a location, as a destination. We just had another major pharmaceutical company move their headquarters here, in a company called Arena Pharmaceuticals.
Wow.
They didn't move their operations here, but they moved their corporate headquarters here.
Yeah.
To Park City, where the executives live.
I see.
Yeah. So it's just an interesting thing. And what we're seeing in Utah, personalized medicine and genomics we're a hotbed for that, and a lot of people don't recognize that. We've got Intermountain Healthcare's Precision Genomics that is a leader in the field.
Sure.
We've got
Myriad Genetics.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we've got ID by DNA. We've just got a lot of companies. Sophia Genetics would love to have more of an operation here. But we have seen a lot of exciting things, and Utah has been known primarily as a device haven, but we're seeing a lot of emergence in pharmaceutical and genetics and things of that nature as well.
Yeah, definitely. Well, having seen what's unraveled with the pandemic, on a science level, what is interesting or engaging to you about where personalized medicine is going and the benefits it can play for humans?
I don't think most people have a clue where that's headed. I think it's going to surprise people. It's kind of like a little bit like the whole messenger RNA thing that came out with the COVID.
Yep.
It was some brand new technology that's just been invented for this.
Sure.
When it's been around for 2 decades or longer. I mean, it's been known for a long time. It's just never been stabilized. And now it has been, and it's come out. And I think people have no clue the amount of work that's gone into the genetics field and the progress that has been made over the last few decades. When you go back to the beginning of, the first time a genetic code was unraveled at all, and now you look at what it costs today to do what they were doing back then, and the type of personalized medicine that can be generated from that technology. I think the next 25, 30 years, we're going to see a real revolution in personalized medicine. That's going to be, in my opinion, the future, and I'm just thrilled that there's more of that happening right here in Utah.
Oh, I totally agree with you. You definitely seem more like an optimist. Now, a lot of people fear progression, evolution, specifically with technology, right? You hear a lot of people that are, AI and a lot of this stuff is scary. AI is going to take over. How do you think we can harness technology appropriately to, use it for good?
I think when you have the first 3 or 4 big wins that come out of this, all the paranoia is going to go away. I mean, people fear what they don't know.
Sure.
And they don't, I mean, it's kind of like right now with the vaccines. There are people who fear getting the vaccine. I mean, what do? We just put Johnson & Johnson vaccines on hold because 1 in 1 million people had a blood clot, when if you did a study of the general population and said out of 1 million people, how many got blood clots, it would be much higher than 1 in 1 million.
Sure.
Abundance of caution, we're taking the appropriate steps just to make sure that there's not the beginnings of something that could be a problem. But again, it's because of fear of the unknown. On balance, I think our medical advances are going to be just stellar. And I'm one of those people who says, are you kidding me? We're stopping Johnson & Johnson for 1 in 1 million blood clots?
But like you say, an abundance of caution, right?
Yes. Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
well,
I'm a big believer in the science.
Yeah. Well, you obviously have a very interesting perspective on the entrepreneurial side, the life sciences, the technology, with your background. So it's very interesting, some of the insights that you've shared with us. Can you maybe leave us with a quote that resonates with you, maybe even a philosophy of life?
Right now, I kind of live by the philosophy that you don't ever get too excited when things go really well, because it's going to change. You don't ever get very down when things go bad, because that's going to change as well.
Oh.
And so it's steady progress. You celebrate the wins, but not too much. And you mourn the losses a little bit, but not too much. You just move forward, because you can't do anything about the past. You can only learn from it and move forward. And too many people live either in their successes or in their failures instead of, and those are in the past. You should be living in the present and looking to the future.
I love it. That's some deep wisdom right there. To go along with that, I had recently heard that, that you mentioned slow and steady, right? That the kind of continual progress, not necessarily giant leaps overnight, but statistically 1% improvement a day over a year compounded is a 3,800% improvement, right? So yeah. I think sometimes we don't get patient. We're impatient, right? When progress isn't happening as fast as we'd like, but slow and steady wins the race, right?
That's right. Yeah. And it doesn't do any good to panic. You just work through the problem. Stay focused on the problem, because you waste a lot of energy when you get overwrought. So either way.
I love it. Well, I really appreciate your time, Kelvyn. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your vacation, and I look forward to communicating with you in the future.
Okay, Jeff. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelvyn. Take care.
Okay, see ya.